Hello, you're listening to the Retrospection section, where we review horrible writing we were once proud of. I'm Max.
I'm Rava.
And we love to make fun of ourselves. It's important to learn from our mistakes. It's also important to shamelessly berate your younger self for writing really awful things. Today's episode is part 2 of The Disorder Division, a book by Max written in the 11th grade, which follows the story of a group of teenage robots as they battle a malevolent cybernetics company called The Disorder Division. The characters' names are Lucy, Tylynn, Tuesday, Brighton, Joe, Nick/Cal, Talent, Shade, and Dr. Wright. Next one is a line from Tuesday, actually more like a word vomit. So, Joe's still missing. Cal walked up to me. Tuesday, I know how he started, but I interrupted him. No, you don't know how I feel. Nobody ever does. Every time something good happens to me, it gets yanked away. You don't have to live knowing that you'll have to think if you want to risk your heart just to become friends with someone, knowing that you'll be yanked away from someone the second you get to know them, living in hiding from the world, not having any friends or loved ones because you're too afraid. I don't know if I'm gonna read this part, because it's like nothing about it is like really noticeably horrible, except for the fact that Lucy and Cinder have a fight about whether they want to check into a hotel or stay at the hospital because Tuesday's just been hit by a car. She sleepwalked out into the middle of the road and got hit by a car. It literally says about 8 days later. This is the Lucy chapter. I walked 5 miles in the snow to the hospital to see Tuesday. When I went up into her room, I wasn't allowed in. I asked a nurse about why I wasn't allowed to see Tues, and the nurse told me that Tuesday had sleepwalked again and had fallen down 3 flights of stairs. She'd broken 2 ribs and badly injured her head. The doctors were doing all they could.
That's the worst hospital ever!
That's not how hospitals work, friend.
How did... The doctors were doing everything they could, except making sure she didn't fall down 3 flights of stairs.
Tuesday heals. They somehow rent an apartment with the limitless money that Tuesday has on her parents' credit card, which for some reason they haven't, canceled. So they get the apartment and then they decide to get jobs because that's reasonable, right? Like, they need money now.
Because we don't have unlimited funds.
Oh, you know what? I think it says earlier Tuesday's card. Oh, yep. After we rented the apartment, I was told that my credit card was maxed out. Any ideas, I asked, pacing back and forth in front of the fireplace. Well, we would need something where we could stay undercover and don't have to talk to people that often.
I thought they rented an apartment.
They did.
Why is there a fireplace?
It's a fancy apartment? Anyway.
Okay.
Remember this sentence. We would need something where we could stay undercover and don't have to talk to people often. Okay, remember that sentence? Explained Lucy, virtually narrowing down our options. So that means, no bartenders or strippers. First of all, you're 15.
Yeah, wow!
Second of all, oh yeah, that's my freaking dream job, I muttered. Well, since Christmas is around the corner and Tuesday's so short, she could be one of Santa's elves, joked William. Job where you have to talk to someone. Santa's elf.
And where you're just standing in the middle of the mall.
And everybody's looking at you.
Yeah, for anyone to come by and... Well, in their defense, they're probably looking at Santa.
True.
But...
So it's settled then, I said, smiling. I will get a job as one of Santa's elves. Then we agreed Tylynn, because she looked to be about 18 or 19 even though she was only 16, could work at more grown-up music stores. She'd already been offered the job along with Cal. When?
IDs aren't a thing.
Apparently not. William and Brighton could work at the cinema because it was dark and hard to see people. Lucy was offered a job at a restaurant as a cook. Talent was with me as an elf. We thought it would be better to work in teams.
Because that's how hiring works.
Even though, Lucy doesn't have a team. Oh, by this time, Cinder has ran away because of their argument in the hospital about whether to get a hotel or stay in the hospital.
Yeah!
Cinder just ran away. Bit of backstory for this one. Lucy and Tylynn just found out that they were sisters, 1, and 2, they're Dr. Wright's daughters. Okay. Tylynn fainted, of course, and then of all things, she shrunk. Oh my god, I did include it! It wasn't long before she was less than a foot tall. Did Tylynn have a power? Were we turning into superheroes? Odd, but not as odd as Dr. Wright being my father. I don't know how we got out of that torturous place, but we did. After setting up camp in a clearing by the Hood River, we all slept for a while and ate a lot, got a new shirt for Lucy, then headed for an orphanage to try and find out our birth parents to see if we had a trust fund or something, because you could just go to any orphanage and just ask.
Orphanages don't even exist anymore in was clearly Oregon, thanks to that nice Hood River drop.
We walked up to the counter and Joe went first. Excuse me, I'm looking for my family and I have no idea who they are. Can you help me? Joe asked in an innocent voice. The lady peered at him over her glasses. She opened up her laptop. Name, please, she said. Joseph Eves, Joe replied. After a few unbearable minutes of awkward silence and waiting, the lady printed out 2 pieces of paper and handed them to Joe. Joe looked them over and said, I have a dad named Roger Smith. He lives in Bronx, New York, about 15 minutes away from the Yankee Stadium, he exclaimed. Holy, Cinder exclaimed. I have a $50,000 trust fund from my grandma.
Cool, you're totally that kid. I've never seen you before, but here, let me hand you his personal information about his parents and this 50 grand that he somehow has. Because you couldn't, murder him and steal his identity to get that 50 grand.
When we got to the airport at the Dells, we realized we would set off the metal detectors because, we were almost entirely made of metal. Thank you, Lucy. Something finally rational.
But wait! Fortunately for us, Tuesday amazingly hacked the computer and got it to let us through. God damn it.
Okay, so then later in this Tai Lin chapter, we find out that Tai Lin has been a mole for the Disorder Division. And then Shade is there because he, tried to convince them that he was on their side, but he's actually not. And so, they're, by a bridge or something, which she then blows up. But anyway, why, Tai Lin? Why? Shade whimpered as I walked away. Don't forget you are my sister. Oh, surprise, Shade's also Dr. Wright's son, and therefore Lucy and Tai Lin's brother. I grew about a foot. I had way too many weird powers. She's becoming self-aware. Here's something that is very telling. I just dated my book to 8th grade, about 2008.
Riff?
I saw a Reaper running at me, so I literally dove at him, knocking him to the ground. Then I jumped up onto a nearby table and then leaped off the table to land on the fallen Reaper's chest, hearing the snap of ribs. I was so ninja!
Oh.
But they're paired up when they're, trying to, look... Wait a minute.
Split up and look for clues, gang.
No, it literally says, so we ran through the halls looking for a vault full of money.
Guess what? That's exactly what they find.
Oh, yeah. They go into a room and it's as big as a small gymnasium, and it was full of money, and it's just money in there. It's what is this, Gringotts Bank? So then they find they are there and they find a room full of little children who are also robots. Then Tai Lin pulls out a teddy bear. You'll find out.
Okay.
One small girl who looked about 2 years old came extremely close to me. I hold baby, her squeaky voice sounded by my ear. Okay, I said, handing her oatmeal. Oatmeal's the teddy. Clutching oatmeal, the girl climbed into my lap and I named her Isabella. Cool. My heart broke as I watched all the little kids who had never known the outside world and I cried. Isabella recruited all of her friends and she's 2. Just then, footsteps rang out and I quickly did a head count. All the Dizzos were here. That could only mean one thing. Guards. Everyone off, I ordered. Then I grew the tallest I'd ever grown. 50 feet. I then opened my secret compartment, which at the size I was now could hold much more than my teddy. Almost 35 kids could get in there. She has a secret compartment in her stomach. Yeah. Oh, so Will is a character I forgot to mention. Will dies because Shade is in love with Brighton, and so he kills Will to be with Brighton, except Brighton hates him because he's a bad guy. Then their whole quest is to bring Will back to life, even though he's a totally minor character that nobody even gives a crap about. And then when Will comes back to life, he's there. Will walked up to Shade casually, and just as Shade was about to swing a jealous punch, Will did something totally awesome yet totally weird at the same time. He disintegrated into a bunch of circuit boards. Joe, well, let's just say he had cleaning tools coming out of his arms. In response to this, he let out a frustrated groan and then said, even in the midst of all this, why is it that everyone else gets cool weapons and I get cleaning tools? And then the wooden mop, yes, a mop, retracted, and in its place was a metal thing somewhat resembling a wing, and it was attached to his arm. And then the duster, yes, a duster, retracted, and in its place there was another wing-like appendage. Next scene that happens, that I bookmarked to read because it's awful. The Dizzos are about to be exterminated. They're put into a giant oven. And I'm too ashamed to read this, so Rob is going to read this one.
Tai Lin had shrunk back down to normal size, and all the kids had been let out of her, but they weren't here. You had to specify
it was important
that you're not boiling 2-year-olds inside of Tai Lin's 50-foot body. The room we were in was literally a huge oven. It was made of metal, and there were those heat conductor things you see in toasters, and they were already glowing with heat. It started to get a little hotter, and then it got so hot, I cried out because I could feel my skin scorching.
This is so embarrassing.
Imagine a burning hot summer's day in the middle of the desert. No buildings in sight, no fans, no water, nothing. I'd take that and be happy with it. Imagine touching a cooking pan while it was on the stove. Nothing, not even close. I managed to get a look at how everyone was doing, even though my eye juice was drying up. Oh man, I like saw the words eye juice out of the corner of my eye, and I... Oh! You want me to keep going? Is there more?
Sure, only I can't remember if if their clothes burn off.
Let me skim.
Wow,
that was a Freudian slip.
No, their clothes are still on because my co-writers, I was like, you guys, their clothes would burn off. If their skin's already burning, their clothes have burnt off. But then they were like, no, we can't do that. They have to have some clothes on. So I just left their clothes on.
Thankfully it worked, and I collapsed into the hallway, which felt so good
like
after
5
the
O's.
burning heat of the room. And I'm only reading this for this sense. I could have stayed out there forever and not given a crap about the rest of my family.
Holy shit, Lucy!
But I did give a crap about them, so I forced myself to go back in there and drag the first Dizzo out, which was Cinder. Ironic. Dragging the Cinder out of the fire first.
And he has like fire superpowers.
I
later.
literally just want to read that part for that joke.
I can't.
I just want to make that pun.
I can't. What was I thinking?
my.
Okay, next one. Oh, so this is where Nick explains why he had to disguise himself as Cal.
This is my favorite part.
I have a confession to make, Cal said. I'm not Cal. There was a chorus of, huh? My name is Nick. I burst out with, oh, this is Tuesday. I burst out with, I slapped and was kissed by Nick? Joe exploded. You slapped and were kissed by my brother?
That passive voice.
That passive voice, though. I wiped my hands on my jeans to get the Nick cooties off and scooted a little closer to Joe. Why were you disgusted by Nick but not by Cal? They're literally the same. I don't understand. How come you didn't tell us sooner, Lucy asked in her concerned leader voice. Why didn't you tell us? I asked, seriously curious. Well, when the Reapers dragged me out of the van, they were planning on killing me because they had a bone to pick with me since, you know, Joe, I stood up for Andrew. Why would they murder you if you're... Anyway, so they took me out, and, well, they tried to kill me, and they left me for dead, but I wasn't. So I made my way to the armory and pretended I was just another Dizzo, but I had to disguise myself because the Reapers knew I was still alive. Well, then they would have really killed me. So I joined you guys again, and none of you ever guessed. And that concludes book freaking 1 of the series. Tune in next time for the sequel, Incurable, in which the Dizzos decide to clean China. If you have some cringe-worthy old writing, send it in to us and we'll rain good-humored destruction on it. Next time on Retrospection section, Incurable.